Cześć! Już za chwilę obejrzycie mój wywiad z Harvey'em Brooksem, czyli wybitnym basistą sesyjnym, którego grę możecie usłyszeć na takich albumach jak Brew Milesa Davisa, czyli na jednym z najważniejszych albumów rozwoju muzyki jazz fusion, jazz rockowej, czy Highway 61 Revisited Boba Dylana, który z kolei jest kamieniem milowym rozwoju muzyki folk rockowej, blues rockowej. Harvey grał również z takimi zespołami jak chociażby The Doors, czy w supergrupie Electric Flag, w której to również grał m.in. wybitny gitarzysta blues rockowy Mike Bloomfield, czy śpiewający perkusista Buddy Miles. Harvey współpracował również z Jimim Hendrixem, z którym często koncertował pod koniec lat 60., a poza tym nadal nagrywa, pracuje obecnie nad swoim drugim solowym albumem. Zatem Harvey to bardzo ciekawa osobowość muzyczna, którego kariera sięga początku lat 60. i ma mnóstwo ciekawych historii do opowiedzenia. Zatem zapraszam Was serdecznie. Przed Wami Harvey Brooks.
How did working with such music legend like Miles Davis change your approach to playing, composing?
Yes. It's a natural phenomenon because we went in there and Miles, before Bitches Brew, Miles had examined every conceivable direction of modal playing, of tunes and improvisation and switching melodies, and he did everything he could think of. And then when this opportunity came along, inspired by his girlfriend, to get hip, to get some electric going on, he started a series of albums that were incredible. And then when I got connected, so I jumped on a spaceship, and what was happening there is the whole thing of music, chord changes and melodies and disciplines, and this had nothing to do with anything. It had only to do with instinct and following the leader. Didn't, there were no chord charts. There was nothing written out. A couple of tunes may have had a Joe Zawinul lick idea, something. But other than that, we were on our own. And so for me, I'm playing folk music, rhythm and blues, R&B, rock and roll, and it's all very formal. It's formatted. And so now I come into here, and I got in there because I was producing for Columbia at that time, and Miles was on Columbia, and Tio Macero was his producer, and Tio had the office next to mine, and he said, Miles is doing a demo with his wife, Betty, and he's looking for a bass player, electric bass player, because it's different, So you want to go down? I said, oh, fuck yeah. I mean, you don't get that invitation that often. And so, yeah, I went down there and I played, and Mitch Mitchell was the drummer. I think Herbie Hancock and Larry, the organ player. It was great. So after the session, Miles says to me, "Hey, Harvey, talk to Tio. We got something to do next week." So that was Bitches Brew. So I come in and I'm sitting next to Dave'a Hollanda. Come on. Dave'a Hollanda, monster, fabulous. Just, the room was filled with monsters. And, as to what happened further on down the line, many very incredible groups came out of that. So for me, I just had to jump in there and, stay with it. Dave and I talked about it and decided that I would play the bottom lines and he would play the top and the melodies. So we get this big, wide, fat bottom. And sometimes we'd play together. A lot of the times it's just me pushing slog, slog of music, and Dave going ta ta ta, just chopping away at it. So it was, it changed my whole set of thinking. It made it a lot easier for me to think of what I like to do as music that is jazz influenced, along with the folk and all my other stuff different kinds of stuff I recorded on. And so it was amazing. And there was an opportunity to go on the road with Miles, and I was not up to it. I said, oh, shit. Because I had an album to produce for Columbia in the other side of the country, and I could have put it on the side, but, I was a little intimidated. So my word to musicians out there, don't be intimidated. Sometimes it's better to jump in over your head, and so you sound like shit. So, the next time you'll get it. But, you say, well, I might not get it next time. But no, you will. As long as you're alive and breathing, you'll have another opportunity.
Yeah. But had you, after this working with Miles on Beaches Brew, have you worked with him later on? Had you worked with him or met him?
That was it.
That was it.
That was my experience. I went on to do a few bands and albums and stuff. And he was Miles. He did his thing. And, if the opportunity was there again, I wouldn't make the same mistake.
Because during this time, Jimi Hendrix planned to do album with Miles, and you also, as we last talked, you told me that you met with Jimmy on his studio, and he told you that he's working on some stuff, and after that, he was planning to cooperate with Miles Davis. Do you think that it would work, this cooperation?
It would have been monstrous. It would have been monstrous. Buddy Miles was going to be the drummer.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Buddy and I had a really fat groove at the Electric Flag. And so that thing with Jimmy would have been great. Miles was like the most adaptable kind of musician. He just, what he heard, he could get right to it. And I wasn't afraid, to jump off the ship and get back on, to play stuff that was out. But, he knew how to bring it back. So it would have been great. It would electrified Miles and Jimmy. Oh, come on. Because Jimmy's so melodic, and Miles, he'd just beam into Jimmy's electric sound, because the way that sound works is he's got it all feeding back, and he's just pressing down, changing electrical tones. That's really what's happening, and it's affecting people. And Miles is the same way. It's yes, that would have been a great thing.
I also think that you would probably be the best player for this because you work with Miles, you work with Jimmy, and you you would be. I think you would fit to this.
Yeah. Well, I got big arms. I can hold the whole bottom.
So you said that Buddy Miles was planned to be a drummer, yeah?
Yeah, he was going to be the drummer. It was kind of Jimmy and Buddy were playing. I forget the name of the Jimi Hendrix band there. But it was a great band. But the problem Jimmy was having, first of all, he was out on the road all the time. It was rough, and this offered him a whole other audience. It would have been amazing, and the music that would have come out, somebody would have come in to arrange some stuff. I mean, it would be monstrous stuff, and we lost out on some great music. Wouldn't be the first time. I have to say, current musicians are a lot smarter than the older musicians. Although, like you see, Ron Carter, what's he, 94? A lot of these guys, they got smart, got healthy, you know. If they were classically trained, they were, classically trained, really there and could do anything. The difference of the jazz player is they can be a classical musician and they can play jazz music, not written. Jazz basically is a little trip down the road, vaguely, and you take it and you run with it. Classical music, it's interpretation. So all these things going on. I don't know what it is now. It's kind of like I don't know. I don't know how to describe it except some of the videos that go along with the music. It's just an out of something. So it's all cerebral, is what it is, and and when it's physical, it's a giant heartbeat. The one, down, and it's kind of like, I don't know. I think we'd be better off really separating things. You can't. They're all valid. Folk music is amazing, and when you hear little New Orleans sounding bands with little white kids, and playing the shit out of it, or all different kinds of musics. And I think that's great. One of the things that YouTube has done, along with what what they've all done about, bastardizing it. But if you're a music lover, you got to listen to all of it. But nobody has the time to listen anymore. It's like, hey, just play it. Okay, great. See you later. I remember days when you would sit down and with some of your friends and you put something on and you're like, yeah, and you'd be digging it. You'd be liking it, enjoying it. You didn't have to be under the influence, although you probably were, but you didn't have to be under the influence to hear it because it was coming from a very organic place.
Yeah.
So that's that.
Yeah, nowadays I think that technology is. Some time ago, I listened to the song in the car with my friends. He put me some kind of blues, very very hard blues in the old style. The voice was amazing, and I thought, what a song! Who did it? And he said, it's IA. It's artificial intelligence. I was so surprised that this song had been created not by a human being, but by some, I don't know who, someone wrote some
An
stuff
alien.
the computer, and then the song appeared. What is your opinion about what's going on now with such things?
Well, I have to admit that there's a young lady, and I can't remember her name, who's doing some amazing things with the music. She sings the music, writes the music, and the videos are amazing. I wish I could remember her name, but she's all over the internet, and the stuff is just really good. Like anything else, though, after you hear, there's a point where it becomes too much, and it starts to get vague because they've used all the tricks, and it's just like, you've oh wow, and now, okay, what's next? And it's always like that. What's next? Oh, that was great. Thank you. What's next? And so if you're a content provider, you got to be on your toes. And me, I just write, some of it's good, some of it's not good. I sing. I never sang before. This album I did, it was the first time I sang, and it was like scary and okay, but I did it. And anybody out there who gets to hear it, it's available on Amazon and many other places. Right alongside of it, I got a couple of books that I wrote. So check it out. I take you on a voyage into an incredible time. And That's it. I mean, the people are looking to find reality and substance. Um, that thing where, like, it catches your ear, and you pull off the road and you go, yeah. I don't do that anymore, but I used to be affected that way.
Last time that we talked, you have this solo album, elegant geezer, yeah? That's
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, and you said that you work on your next album. Is it on the process? You still
it's
on?
it's in the process. It's going to be more instrumental,
Mhm.
just in a couple of vocal tunes. Um, but it's a little difficult to get the focus that you need to have. Um, but I have great inspiration around me, and we're all in a good place, and we love life, and
Mhm.
music is incredible, and I've been blessed being able to be a musician and to be part of the music world. And at 81, I plan to continue.
Mhm.
And so I'm playing a bass and guitar.
Mhm.
You know, now I'm known as a bass player, and I'm a guy. I love guitar playing. But the thing about playing both the instruments, it gives you an idea about, it gives you a lot of extra ideas.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you're working on this album, and it will appear when? Do you have any date, a special date to when it will come out?
Uh, I would say it's probably going to be another year.
Another year. Okay.
Yeah,
Any
because
guess?
there will be.
No, you cannot say,
I
or
can't say at this time because the way the world is, you never know what's going to happen. Um, but there's a lot of different ways to record now. We can do it here and with somebody in another country.
you cannot say. You say that will be some guests also from the outside of from different countries. Yeah, you said from
Yes,
different
yes, 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 yes.
places.
The last album was with some Israelis and some Americans, and I've been meeting so many people, and there's some fabulous musicians in Israel,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of things to think about being an Israeli. But what's important is everything works out for the best, and the music continues.
Mhm.
The classical Israeli music is phenomenal. Between the Arab music and the Israeli music, there's so much culture involved in there.
Mhm.
It's it's a good thing. And so I'm also working on a couple of other projects. The thing that happens that's nice is a guy like me, I've been around a long time, and I'm still doing it. And people like, to talk to me about things. And so I'm like the kind of old fart on the hill sometimes.
Mhm.
I've seen pretty much everything. Even things that didn't exist still are rooted in daily life. And, you learn to play an instrument or you learn to use a piece of equipment, it's all the same. There's a certain amount of time it takes to master it, and then there's a certain time to develop how to get comfortable with it. Um, but you just keep on doing it.
Mhm. You also lately you also have a book lessons. Yeah, I think it appeared around month ago. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is it's like how to play the electric bass, how to understand what you're playing, becoming a professional, and baseline sessions and on the road stories by me. So it's a lesson book about being a bass player in life, you know, the things that you could do and can't do and shouldn't do, you know, and it's in a friendly fashion. I'm not pointing the finger because I'm certainly not one to point fingers. But I thought it would be nice, you know, to get my point out because I look at all the books, you know, all the bass books and music, they're all the same. They all have all the exercises and, you know, so, you know, mine is about the bullshit, you know, the other stuff that goes on, you know, stupid things that you shouldn't do. I have a little section on that. And, you know, and I've done them probably within my brilliance of wisdom. There's been amazing mistakes, which, you know, bring you back to learning from what you're doing. And you got to be in there doing it. You know, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about your music if you're a player, because you live with it. They don't, you know. And if you're intent on trying to make a living, you know, there's only a few ways to do it, and you have to know somebody. And there's some, you know, or you have to come up with an incredible, freaky little device, something, you know, that catches the ear or catches the eye, and you got a good run, you know, for a little while. But that was like for me in the old days when you had a hit record, then you tried to follow up the next one, and then you went down, and then you had to do a bunch of gigs to try and promote it, and then it got tough. Then it was good. You went to a different band and a different scenario. All of that stuff was following the bus, you know, you're trying to be on the bus and going where the next hit was. It's not like that anymore. It's, you know, it's more like songs, which is a good thing. You know, if it's a gimmicky song or, you know, something that catches the ear. But the business itself is also trying to figure itself out because it's a penny. There's no more pennies. You know, so they have all this whole structure has been a little shaken on how musicians and the content providers get paid. So, you know, there's, I played with Bloomfield, Hendrix, Robbie Robertson, Bob Dylan, lots of guitar players, lots of people. Robbie Krieger from The Doors. And all these people that I play with, I learned, you know, how they work, how they create, how they put things together, and how much belief you have to have while you're insecure. But at the same time, you have to believe that what you're doing is what you want. You know, because you could write a whole song and say, where did I go wrong? Well, if you finish the song, you didn't go wrong. You finished it. You got it together, and it may or may not work. When you find something that works, you use it. And the thing that happened to me in one particular instance, I wrote a song. It was like a thing called Harvey's Tune. It was on a Super Session album. I wrote this song, and I was on the beach in Malibu, California. All the surfers were out there and the surfer girls. And for another couple of years, you know, I was just playing around with it. And then I got this session, a super session, and I said, I got this thing. You know, this is a simple little thing, but because of the time I spent on it, you know, just editing maybe this a little of that, a little of this. By the time it was ended, it was enough for it to go on the album, and for Cooper and I keep forgetting the guy's name, a great saxophone player who did the arrangement, and just really made it come to life. So we partnered up on that. But that was that.
I think the first bass session that you did recorded, it was Highway 61 Revised from Boba Dylana. It was first professional bass part that you did, yeah? It was this one.
Absolutely. Al Cooper called me up, and he had gotten on the session, and Bob didn't like the bass player. He was too stiff. And Cooper called me. I was playing a gig at a little club on 36th and 3rd in Manhattan. And he said, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, well, what's up? He says, I got a session for you with this guy, Bob Dylan. And I said, who's Bob Dylan? And Cooper said, he's a folk singer. I said, wow, okay, that sounds good. And he says, is that Columbia? And the guy's great. So I go there the next day. I go up to the studio, and then Dylan's at the console with the engineer, and they're listening to
like a Rolling Stone, maybe.
Thank you. Like a Rolling Stone. And so I'm going, this is great. This is I haven't heard anything like this. I'm glad to be here. And so Bob said, hey, how you doing, man? Then he turned his back on me and went back to what he was doing. And Bob's manager, Albert Grossman, was introduced to me by Al Cooper. And, there it was. Albert said, very nice to meet you. And then they left me, and I'm standing there, and I figured, well, man, I should go into the studio then. I go in the studio, I plug into the amp. Mike Bloomfield comes bursting through the door into the studio. Telecaster guitar on his shoulder. I think it was raining out there. But, what a guy. Full of energy, and his hair was electric. Everything about him was electric. And so we got down to business, and it all fit. It all fit. We were different. Bloomfield was a Chicago blues guitar player who leaned to the front of the beat. I'm like an R&B, mostly bass player who's like on the back of the beat. And you had Bobby, the drummer, who was right on the beat. And so, and the other piano players and so on and so forth. It was not the best playing I've ever done, but when you all put it together, it made a solid song. It made a solid album. All of it fit. There was a couple of others that were done, I think, in Nashville. I'm not sure. But it was really great. And from that session, we got to play the Hollywood Bowl, featuring the new album, and then First Forest Hills Stadium. And then I had contracted a date in Detroit, Michigan, before I met Bob. And I was being an honorable musician. And I took I said, look, I got the gig, so I got to go. And it was for 3 weeks. They were assembling Bob's band for the tour, for the rest of the tour. And so I called in a couple of days after I left, and I said, well, what's going on? When do I need to be back? Oh, by the way, you don't need to be back. You know, when the metal is hot and it's moldable, that's when you hit. After that, it's rock solid. You ain't getting in. So, but it was. I knew the guys. We were good friends from Woodstock, and that's showbiz. I went out to San Francisco and did the Electric Flag with Bloomfield, and history came. A lot more history came out of that.
Yeah. But you also played with Dylan after that, I think on 97.
Oh yeah, on 1970.
Yeah.
New
Some concerts, some
Morning, New Morning,
New Morning, yeah, exactly.
and I had a couple singles on there. But anyway, so that was, after that is when the 1970 session for Bob came in. Like we had reopened the door, and they were having trouble getting the right feel for these tunes. And called on me.
Yeah.
And I was there.